Hello! When I did the recent video about OB data, I realized that most of the advertisements were talking about peripherals or announcing some things like Pascal language, which never happened. And I realized that I never actually made a video showing all the peripheral we actually had. And for example, that's what you could have in one of the French magazines, we call Periph Oric, with a list of peripherals you were supposed to have for the Oric. So I don't have all the things which have been made for the Oric, but since I have quite a few, I'm going to show you the current state of what I have. So if we look at the Periph Oric, they talk about tape deck. So I don't have the specific model, but I got that one with the Oric label. It's a generic, it's available on multiple brands, but it's very reliable. It has a monitor so you can hear the beep. It has both the jack and the in. And I've been doing a lot of loading and recording, and it actually works very nicely. But I actually never saw it in shop back then. I was just using a standard like that. And quite a few people actually had problems loading and saving. So there were things like this stuff. That one is a recreation of something which was available in one of the magazines, which is the Oric signal conditioner. So basically it contains some small component to boost up the signal and make the shape slightly more palatable. When I tried it, personally, I have not seen any difference, but that's one of the things you could have back in the days. So it requires a 9-volt battery, and it's supposed to do its magic, but... Next in the list, we have the joystick. So I don't have the box, but here's the official Oric joystick with 2 buttons. Except there is a problem. The Oric does not have any joystick port of any kind. So we had to rely on expansions. So if you can see that one, the joystick with interface is actually that one. And unfortunately, you can see it's written PACE here, joystick interface. It's me adding the label because I have other things. And the problem with PACE is that this thing just plugs on the printer port, like pretty much all of them. And there is nothing smart about this interface. So when you connect one of the 2 joysticks and you press a direction, that makes the contact directly on the pins. And unfortunately, if you try to do something like play music, it happens that the sound chip is also on the same port, and basically that modifies the values sent to the sound chip, resulting in horribly distorted sound. So that one is terrible, and quite a few people made another one, which is from a copy from the EGK. EGK made something which basically is similar to that, but it contains some smart electronic with a capacitor, which allows you to not have the problem with the sound. Basically, you have to play with one of the signals on the printer port to charge the capacitor, and it's only when this happens that you can read the signals. And here I have a few remade by some people. So that one is from Higashigen. He has 2 ports. That one is from Canet. It's the simplest to build, but it has only 1 port. That one is from ESS, and it goes with the EGK Egoist. And it's also Egoist because it has only 1 port. But back then, there were also some other alternatives, like that one from Opel. As you can see, it also has connects on the same printer port. And unfortunately, this thing is quite complicated to program, and basically it's almost not supported by any game other than what came with it. And then, and specifically on the French market, I don't know if there were similar things on the British market, for example. Periph Oric, I have these. So, minimalistic packaging. So here we have the light pen, crayon optique pour Oric. So it's a box with a DIN connector, an interface for the expansion bus, the actual light pen. So basically you plug that on the RGB out of the Oric, and then you plug your SCART connector in the other plug. And then this is connected to the extension port. You can read the values by just using two peak address 992 and 993 to get the X and Y resolution. I did some tests and it was not very accurate. And it did not work on my main TV because the light was too weak due to the cover. So that's a generic problem with this peripheral, is that technically they do work. In practice, they have many issues. That one is a 8 input-output expansion. So, similar to the other one, it's also from Magico Electronic. And you can change the address range you want to use using the switches here. And you have, I don't know which one is input and outputs, but basically you can connect things, and using pick and poke you can detect the values if it's on or off, and you can enable things. So using that, you should be able, for example, to start your coffee machine or detect that a sensor is activated on a window. So you could do an alarm system, for example. But similarly to the light pen, when I tried it, I tried something very simple. I tried to make a small Knight Rider style system by just changing the value to get and it worked nicely for about 30 seconds, and then it got frozen. Next one, we have the speech synthesizer. Also from Magico. This, I believe, is a cable to put on the tape to get the sound out. Yeah, so here you can have a headset, for example, and here it's to connect to some audio system. And I believe it's based on the SPO256 chipset, so it speaks with a British pronunciation. So it's a relatively standard speech synthesizer. And then that one, which is the black and white modulator. So you connect that to the RGB connector and you get UHF out. And then you can go on the channel 36 like usual. So some of you may wonder, why do I need that if I have that? Well, as it happens, the modulator box on the Oric only works on the British systems. If you have a French TV, the picture will appear distorted and the video inverted. So instead of fixing the computers on import, well, why not force people to buy a stupid box? And finally, we have the modem, the Digitelec 2000. So that one was not made by Oric, it was made by a third-party company, and it's a generic modem with board inside, with only one being specific to the Oric. The rest exists in version for Apple II, Amstrad, etc. The reason the French advertisement mentioned that one is probably because they did not manage to get the original Oric version to be available on the French market, maybe for some regulation problem, like you needed a French conformant telecom connection. But I do have the actual Oric modem, and here it is, the V23 Oric modem. And these things are super annoying because they came with cables that can't be removed. And when I received it, it had been stored somewhere, so it has some glue on it, so whatever you do, it stays sticky. And this is a British connector. So you plug that on your wall connector, and then you plug your phone on that one. On here you have the data connector, which is supposed to connect to the serial interface. But the Oric does not have a serial port, it only has an extension for printer or parallel port. So you need to use the Oric RS-232 expansion. Unfortunately, this thing is basically cast in hard plastic, and with the time it broke and basically damaged the thing inside. And the one I received had been modified with an installation box, so basically I never managed to get this modem dealing. But it may happen at some point, who knows? So quite a few of the ads mentioned a printer, and they were mentioning things like a standard matrix printer, but most of the people on the Oric got the Oric MCP40, which is basically a plotter which can draw text and graphics in 4 colors. It works very nicely. The only problem is that it is not A4 in size, so you can only print on very narrow paper, and it uses very tiny pens that you need to remove when you don't use it, else they dry out, and they are so tiny that basically you get through your reserve of pens super fast, because every time you start it, it needs to do the small squares to ensure that the ink does not dry out inside. But other than that, it's a very nice printer, and it connects to the Oric printer port. On that one I modified to have a Centronic connector, so you can actually connect it to another type of computer. Then we have the Microdisc, the thing that the Hobby Data was claiming will be 5¼ inch instead of 3 inch. So standard drive, quite pretty and reliable, but more expensive than the machine itself. So not many people in France got it. It was too expensive for the machine. In France, since the thing was very expensive, we got a device called Jasmin, which I don't have, but you can see some pictures here. So we also have modern recreations of this drive, since they are not very easy to get through. So historically we got that one, which is a Cumulus, which was created I believe in 2014 by Retromaster, and then first production batch by Metadata. So the first one was from Turkey, I believe, and the Metadata from Germany, and then they've been built by people in various locations. Then we got the Cumana Reborn. That one is actually an actual Microdisc compatible hardware inside with a real FDC. So if you pass a cable here, you can plug a real floppy drive. I've not done it, but I know it's done, and the person who sells these also sells a combo that contains a 3½ inch floppy drive, so you can have both the floppy emulator and the physical drive. We also got the Erebus, which also plug on the expansion port. Contrary to the two other, that one is a tape emulator, so you will not be able to load any disk file. It's only tape. On the two other, they don't do tape, they only do, which is where come Loci. So I have it here. It's a final version in Pravet's 8D color, and here I have the developer debugging model in Atmos colors. On that one, also plugged like all the other on the expansion port, but it does tapes on disk. So that's a device I recommend these days, because with that you can load pretty much every single software made for the Oric, including most of the weird ones, but not the one with protections. We also got quite a few people making their own interface for the Oric, because the machine was relatively cheap, so quite a few people started making hardware for it, and books on how to make expansions. that one being one of them, comes with listings, but also schematics, and that one to learn how to do electronic on your Oric on Atmos from Soracom Informatique. Also with circuits and curves and how to compute resistance of things. And Soracom also made a book called Interfaces for your Oric One on Atmos. I do have it somewhere, but I could not find it for the video, so I will just put a picture. Not properly speaking an expansion, but this is the Diagnostic ROM system from Mac Brown. So you plug that on the back of your Atmos, you plug that on the keyboard connector, you put that on the printer port, and you put that on the tape port, and this thing will go through all the devices and using LEDs, try to tell you if your CPU is working, if your RAM is working, if your VIA chip is working, if your sound chip is working, etc. etc. And that's very practical to quickly diagnose the problem on the machine. That one, I diagnosed with it, found out that was the ULA not working. So I mentioned earlier that the speech synthesizer was speaking English, but there is also that one based on the Philips MEA 8000, and that one, when programmed properly, can speak French, or at least without an accent. That one is a recreation, relatively recent, of a few years ago, but it's basically a copy from an interface which was available in the magazine. And the last interface I have is the 8-bit hub. So this thing contains a microcontroller board, like ESP, I think 286, and you plug that on the printer port, which is nice because it gives you access to the floppy disk drive, for example. And you can have up to 3 joysticks, a PS2 mouse, and with it, basically, you get access, so there is a SD card there, you get access to internet with Wi-Fi. And if you use the 8-bit Unity libraries, you can play games like 8-bit Racer. I forgot the name. It's like Super Sprint. And you can play online with people on using Commodore 64 on Lynx game console, Atari Lynx. That's a quite nifty concept. I really like it. Now I think we could have something more compact, without screen, using the same method as what was done for Loci, with a menu directly on the Oric. I think it's much more elegant than having an external screen. And we could have a combination of something containing basically the 8-bit hub, Loci, and have something quite nice, without having to rely on a USB hub or something like that. And while we are on the topic of things to plug on your Oric, people regularly are wondering if the TV I'm using on my photos is made by Oric, but no, it's not. This thing is a 2002 Brionvega Algol BV1, I think, or BV1, I don't remember, from Brionvega. Yeah, BV1. And it's a recreation of a 1965 model. Except that one has a SCART, SVHS, it's stereo. It has a remote control, very fancy looking remote control. It's portable with a small handle. And yeah, it matches quite nicely the color of the Oric. So that's my monitor of choice. So if you can find one at a price where you will not have to sell a kidney, in good condition, just go for it. And there are multiple colors. There is one which is black and white, with a white which is slightly creamy, which will work nicely with the Oric one. But yeah, that one I think is a way to go for the Atmos. And yeah, I believe that's it for today. I hope that was interesting. Bye bye!